When you think of the saddest backstories in One Piece, a lot of names probably come to mind, but I'd argue none of them compare to Bartholomew Kuma. His story isn't just about tragedy, it's about faith, sacrifice, and the unshaken love of a father. And the craziest part? Every single thing he did was a choice, an action that led to a reaction. One Piece has genuinely always been a series of characters and their actions and reactions, a storytelling technique referred to as action-reaction cycle. Throughout critics of shows, games, anime, and movies alike, this cycle is referred to a lot as the proper way of storytelling. A story cannot be well told if it's constantly being told with and thens and thens. Each event of the story should correlate to something a character chose to do, and what happens next should be the reaction to that choice. So what does this have to do with Kuma? Why do I talk about the action-reaction cycle of storytelling in my video analysis all about him? Well, it's because he's a perfect example of this exact technique. Everything that happens in his story is based on the reaction of somebody else's choice or his own altering his future. From his upbringing to his death, Kuma was tested at every turn of his resolve and agency. Would he ever fall from kindness or falter from his values like so many do when faced with unsurmountable odds? No, he won't, and he never will. Kuma is a strong example of overcoming the falsehood of victim mentality. At any moment in his story, he could have chosen to define himself that way, choose to give up and give in to the evil of this world. Instead, he sticks to his agency. He sticks to his ability to react positively to every situation. Kuma is not a victim. He is a survivor. And to Bonnie, his daughter, a hero. To understand why Kuma became the man he was, we have to look back to his early childhood. What were the values he was raised with? What were some of the things his parents did for him and taught him in his youth? In chapter 1095, we are shown the tragic beginning of Kuma's life. He and his parents were quickly enslaved by the world government. His mother was killed almost immediately, but his father had just enough time to leave Kuma with one final lesson before he was taken from him. The sun god Nika will come. His laughter can bring joy, and he will set you free. Though brief, these moments reveal the foundation of Kuma's upbringing. His parents always tried to fill his life with positivity, even in chains. In the anime, we even see Kuma's father teaching him to love the very people who hated him. They were a family who refused to be broken by despair, always choosing to look toward the bright side and placing their faith in the belief that a liberator would someday arrive. Each decision Kuma makes throughout the rest of his life can be traced back to his belief in the sun god. We see this in the church he establishes, how he raises Bonnie, and in the way he treats other people, especially those who have been enslaved or discriminated against. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and author of Man's Search for Meaning, explains that if a man has a why to his life, then the how comes naturally. In other words, strong moral values give a person the strength to endure any hardship. For Kuma, the hope of the sun god and the lessons from his father to stay true and to treat everyone with kindness became his why. These values anchored him, ensuring that he never faltered when faced with adversary. Kuma's character is defined by his agency. No matter how dire the circumstances, he never allows them to define who he is. Instead, he consistently chooses to respond with a positive outlook. We see this clearly in how he supports Bonnie through her illness. He never lets despair take hold, and instead gives her hope to keep going. And Kuma is no hypocrite. He doesn't just preach hope, he genuinely believes it for himself and for the future. Kuma shows that when we root ourselves in hope, compassion, and love, we are never truly powerless because we always have the agency to decide how we respond. His story teaches us something powerful about our own lives. Joy and happiness are not dictated by our own circumstances, but where we choose to place our focus. Kuma has his focus on the sun god and hope that he and his family will one day be liberated. But what does this belief in the sun god mean in the One Piece world? In our world, a sun god is prevalent in many different religions and beliefs across the globe. Ra in ancient Egypt, Helios in ancient Greece, and Surya in Hinduism. Across cultures, these figures typically represent light, warmth, and life itself. Even in some sects of Christianity, the sun is a symbol of justice and righteousness. The belief of a sun god in our world that closely parallels to the sun god in the One Piece world is the Hindu god Surya. Surya is quoted to be the dispeller of darkness and represent qualities like willpower, name, fame, and authority. Now, how do these relate to the sun god Nika found in the One Piece story? Well, he is the warrior of liberation, and just like Surya, Nika embodies the triumph of light over darkness. He is not simply a figure of hope, he is a symbol of freedom, of joy, and of willpower to endure even the harshest oppression. We can also tie this back to the value Kuma holds on agency. His belief in Nika is not passive. There are plenty of characters that have suffered the pains of oppression Kuma experienced in his childhood and throughout his whole life. By actively embodying Nika's ideals, Kuma chooses agency over victimhood. He chooses love, kindness, and resilience when bitterness would have been easier. The myth of the sun god brought hope and joy to Kuma's life. A direct comparison can actually be made from Kuma's story to Doflamingo's. They could not be more different in their upbringings and their reactions to it. Doflamingo experienced trials throughout his childhood, but instead of listening to his father and following his moral code after leaving the luxurious life of a celestial dragon, Doflamingo resented him for it. This eventually led him to killing his own father just to gain status as a world noble. Of course, we know that this didn't work. Doflamingo was not granted re-entry, and then he became the vengeful, hateful, and horrible evil pirate that we know him as today. Now compare this to Kuma and his response to his awful circumstances, and look at the man he's become. Kuma, unlike Doflamingo, had a strict moral code, a moral code directly linked to his faith in the sun god. And it is precisely because Kuma clings to that code rather than giving in to vengeance that he was able to become the kind of father Bonnie needed. Selfless, loving, and willing to sacrifice everything for her future. Bonnie is Kuma's most valuable possession. Throughout the story, he demonstrates this as the life he wants to build for Bonnie motivates many of his actions. In the beginning of his fatherhood, from when Ginny's child was taken into custody by him, he always tried his best to make the world a better place for her and care for her as a father. In chapter 1098, we see him trying everything he can to just feed her right, even asking all the help from the locals. One of them even suggests that he needs to put her in an iron cage to protect her if Kuma rolled over in his sleep. Later in the very same chapter, we see a panel that shows just that. Although minor, these details show us how caring Kuma is as a father. Once he realizes that Bonnie has fallen ill, he immediately takes precautions, shutting all the windows and keeping the doors closed to protect her. This was followed by an even greater sacrifice. He left the Revolutionary Army to stay by her side and care for her as her condition worsened. Kuma willingly gave up his own ambitions and personal goals for his daughter. Later, at the age of 5, after Bonnie was teased for her facial features, Kuma complimented her and told her that they made her beautiful. The very feature that had cost him the love of his life was now on his daughter. But instead of trying to hide it or ignoring it, he reassured her that her flaw made her beautiful, just like any truly devoted and extraordinary father would. Also, if we go back and think of Kuma's response to Ginny's capture by the world government, we can see his resolve in looking on the positive and bright side. Instead of lashing out in vengeance to the world government, he honors Ginny's memory by taking care of her daughter. The job of vengeance was left to the sun god. In chapter 1098, we can see that the values of the sun god have already been being taught to Bonnie. The warrior of liberation is what bonds the two together. It's what makes the relationship as father and daughter so strong. Then, while protecting the kingdom from world government tyranny to ensure Bonnie's safety, Kuma eventually obtained pirate status. And what did he do during his travels around the seas? He visited every island he could find in search for a cure for the disease that plagued his daughter. Then, once he gains knowledge that Vegapunk might help, he safely transports Bonnie to be under his care. There is where his ultimate sacrifice would begin. Whenever we discuss Kuma and his story, the focus always ends up on the sacrifice he eventually made to the world government, which turned him into the brute we see in the pre-time skip. Now, the ultimate sacrifice Kuma willingly and eventually makes is to get rid of his whole mind and free will to become a human weapon for the Navy and completely lose his sense of self. This was the deal he was offered. In exchange, Bonnie would receive treatment to cure her disease and be freed from the world government forever. What a deal. And then we see Kuma begins to cry and put down his head, but then he puts his head back up and says thank you. The man who lost his parents, who suffered enslavement, who went through all this unimaginable pain, is now giving gratitude to the same oppressor that ruined his life over and over and over and over again. He thanks the man who suffered afflictions on his family, on his own daughter, and to him personally. And why does he thank him? Because the terms of the deal were set. If he went through with this, his daughter would be safe. That is the depth of Kuma's love. That is the depth of his sacrifice. That is how much he's willing to give up for his daughter, how much trust he puts in the sun god. And it's all shown in this staggering magnitude of this final sacrifice. Then after that comes the gut-wrenching twist of the knife. He can't even see Bonnie. For the average person, or for me, this would be like the final nail in the coffin. But how does Kuma react? Calmly and unflinchingly, he states, "Fine. Just make sure that Bonnie gets to grow up in a nice, comfortable environment and not in some lab as she cures from her disease." Wow. The fortitude. For Kuma, the terms of the deal didn't matter. As long as Bonnie was safe, as long as she could live with comfort and dignity, nothing else mattered. Even the loss of his own freedom, his own mind, and his own identity. It could be endured because of his love and his agency were all devoted entirely to ensuring her well-being. After Bonnie is safely home, Kuma gives one last goodbye, and this part always makes me cry. Kuma embodies the man and the father I want to be. His final words to Bonnie, "Thank you. Thank you for being born." Following Kuma's departure, he continues to write letters expressing his love and emotions to Bonnie, and no doubt within those letters were stories of the warrior of liberation. Eventually, Bonnie escapes her hostage situation with the government, in a punch that ties everything we've discussed in this video, a punch straight to the organization that had suppressed the Kuma family for so long. Bonnie uses distorted future, Nika-like future. The faith in Nika, the warrior of liberation, now lives on through Bonnie. In conclusion, we know how the rest of the story goes. Eventually, Kuma undergoes the surgery and loses all consciousness and loses his own self. But before that, he meets Luffy, and for a split second, he finally sees that hope he's been looking for his whole life. His faith in the sun god will finally be fulfilled through him. Kuma places all his faith entirely on Luffy to protect his daughter, and we know that in time, that trust will be fulfilled. Looking back at the Egghead Island as a whole, we can really see that this becomes clear and just how profound Kuma's sacrifice really was for his daughter. I mean, just imagine how Bonnie must have felt when she realized how much her father sacrificed for her. And finally, after everything, she gets to finally witness the power of the sun god, the thing her father has been praying for forever. It's finally here. It's a moment of triumph, love, and faith that just completely solidifies everything Kuma has done for his daughter, a testament to the extraordinary depth of his character. Now that will be the end of my analysis of Kuma and how I think that he's the best father figure in One Piece and honestly in all of fiction. Let me know again what you guys think. What is your favorite part about Kuma's backstory? What's the saddest part about Kuma's backstory? Why you love him so much? Because I personally really like him. He's definitely become one of my favorite characters now in the series because of these newest reveals and because of this newest content that we have based on his character. The rest of the video will just me be describing my own personal thoughts on Kuma and how he's affected me as a person and stuff like that. If you're interested in that, you can keep watching. If not, I thank you for watching this long. I loved making this video, and so I really hope you enjoyed it as well. Just like and subscribe for more content like this because I really enjoy making it. I just personally love how this story teaches us the exact lesson of it doesn't matter what our circumstances are in life, it just matters what our mindset or what our focus is on in this life. And obviously the focus for Kuma was the sun god and Nika and the warrior of liberation, but for me personally in my life, the focus of my life can be in the Savior, Jesus Christ himself. And in the New Testament, it talks a lot, and Jesus teaches that if you're yoked with him, that your burdens can become lighter, and this is 100% true, and I felt it, and I've seen it in others, and I just love how I can connect that with the One Piece story. Kuma kind of yoked himself with the sun god, and that was one of the reasons why he got through everything that he went through. Some of you might think it's crazy that I can relate something like One Piece to something spiritual, but I just can't help it. It always happens, and it's always so satisfying to see that the work of God can really be in anything, ever, anywhere. It's just awesome. Anyway, remember to like and subscribe for more content like this, videos every week. This has been Jackson with Conversation Hockey. Thank you for watching.
Hello, this is Deacon with Conversation Hockey ASMR. Today, we will be using the paper towel. Fire.